Hey free-to-play gang, welcome back to another video. So I want to try something new or start a new series pertaining to maybe some of the far end game viability of some of these aspects over here. So we're going to start off this particular series with Sienna. We're going to talk about like Tanky and all that as well in the near future. Now the reason why I want to start off with Sienna is because she has probably one of the most busted R6s in this game, alongside with like Sally and all that. So I think it's going to be a really great place for us to start this conversation, and especially since she is extremely versatile. Like she is very useful in many different content, which is why I always feel like Sienna is probably one of those aspects that most players should not sleep on and try your best to get her skills up to the max, because this really changes her kit entirely. And of course you can avoid her first skill because it is essentially quite useless. I mean, not her the first skill is good, but the skill upgrades are essentially useless. Okay, so for this video we're going to start off with her abilities, followed by her equipment of my choice, and of course some growth like her Ascensions and her Resonances, and finally we're going to take a look at some PvE and PvP content where I use her a lot in. Okay, so let's start off with her first skill. This is Guardian Vine. Attacks one enemy, grants 20% AP to Sienna and one other random ally. It can be herself as well, it's completely random. But one very interesting thing about her first skill is, if you guys have ever tried using Melanie, you understand that you cannot AP reduce enemies who have already taken their turn. So like for example, if an enemy has 100% AP, the enemy is taking their turn, they attack you, let's say your Melanie counter attacks and reduces AP of the enemy, or maybe a Lucas for example, you're not actually able to reduce the enemy's AP. And that's because the enemy has already 100% AP. But the thing is, for Sienna's case, even though she already has 100% AP when she attacks with her first skill, what you notice is that she actually still gains that 20% AP on this skill itself, which is quite wild in my opinion. So let's take a look at this. So we're going to use our first skill here, normal attack. You notice that our AP is actually pushed by 40% over here, which is crazy good. This is crazy good. Now let me show you again once more. Okay, so assuming we are taking a look at this guy, this Isolator, he has the exact same speed as us, so he's already at 100% AP, so he's gonna be like the perfect point of comparison. So we normal attack him, we push ourselves by 40% AP, and now we counter attack with Avatara, so we are at 80%, right? And we can confirm this by checking his AP again. He's currently at 19% or 20% AP, which means we actually moved 80% within this entire process, which includes our usage of her first skill during her turn itself. So her first skill is very powerful. Now let's continue with the rest of her abilities, starting with her second. This is Earth's Blessing. It grants all allies attack up and speed up for 3 turns, and this is her R2 effect. Or at least the duration is based on her R2 effect, and it has a cooldown of 4 turns, which is really good. And the reason for that is because her third skill, Wrath of the World, actually gives her an extra turn. But before we get ahead of ourselves, attacks all enemies, clears the enemy's AP with a 100% proc chance. Upon successfully clearing the enemy's AP, there is a 100% chance of inflicting stun for 1 turn. Also another 100% proc chance. So the way you can think of her is that she's kind of like a Lomian, except that she can stun for 2 turns. And I just realized that this says 1 turn. This is obviously a bug. This is supposed to be a 2-turn stun. Not sure why it says 1 turn over here, but it's something that I probably have to report. Anyway, just to confirm, right, Wrath of the World, her stun is extended to 2 turns, as you can see over here. So like I was saying, you can think of this as a Longmian with a 2-turn stun on his third skill instead of a 1-turn stun. But of course, on top of that, there is also AP clearing. So a lot of people are saying that her stun chance is not good because it only hits 1 time. But the same can be said for Longmian, right? But of course, the most important thing is she gains 1 turn immediately. So even though this cooldown has this skill has a cooldown of 5 turns, its effective cooldown is actually 4 turns. Which also brings me to the next point, which is her equipments. But before I get to that, her captain ability is just resist by 40%. And let's move on to her equipments. And this brings me to the point where the Ocean set is very powerful on her because she takes multiple turns within the same turn. So after using her third skill, she could effectively go into her second skill and proc the Ocean set, which then further lowers the third skill cooldown by another 1 more turn. So it goes down to 3 turns, for example. So I highly recommend the Ocean set for PvE content, but in terms of PvP content, the Ocean set also works, or you can either go for the Wind set if you want her to take one of the faster turns, or if you're looking to give her the speed advantage. So ideally, the best sets for her is going to be the Ocean set and the Avatara set for the extra counter attack, because like we have showcased earlier, when we counter attacked, we also pushed our AP by 40% because we triggered this on ourselves twice. So she is an amazing Esper through and through. Now let's take a look at her Ascensions. So she starts off with flat defense, flat HP, 10% accuracy, 7 speed, and 20% HP, which the HP itself is not a good one. I would prefer if she had 10 speed instead, but it is what it is. Now as for Resonances, all of her Resonances are extremely good. Starting with her second Reso, which increases the buff duration of her second skill by 1 turn up to 3 turns. And her R4, if there is any ability on cooldown, which is almost certainly always going to be the case, her speed increases by 20 as well, which allows her to trigger her first skill a lot more effectively, right? With higher speed, you're going to take more turns and you're going to push your own AP and one other ally or maybe yourself as well. And her R6 as well, which is extremely insane. Her stun duration is extended to 2 turns, which is very, very powerful. So that's it for the introduction of Sienna. Let's take a look at some content that she strives in a lot. Now, because of the randomness in her first skill, it is not really recommended that you use her in Ritual Miracles because Ritual Miracles tend to require more consistent runs. So I wouldn't think that Sienna is going to be a really great choice in, let's say, APEP, for example. But she is still going to be very, very powerful in other content. So like, for example, Dislyte Lens, for example, I do not use her here just because her buff duration is a little bit too long for Shadow Gale. And in terms of Shadowstream, I think she's pretty decent. So for example, I may choose not to use Alice over here, and I think it might actually be a better idea to drop the Sienna here just because she has the extra duration of her speed buff and she has the attack up buff as well, and of course she pushes a lot of AP, so maybe something like this is gonna work out really nicely for us. Wait, what? No, wait, hold on, I was on the wrong boss. Shadowstream. Okay, we remove Alice here and we drop the Sienna in her place. So I think a good thing about Sienna in Shadowstream is because she takes multiple turns, right? So that's going to allow her to effectively remove the debuff that the boss lands at like the middle part of the fight. But of course, a lot of things are very important about a kit. So even her first skill itself that increases the AP of one random ally, if that increases the AP of, let's say, some of your supports, like your Ira or your Anki-Chai or even your Meredith, it's going to be very, very huge. You see that double proc of her Ocean set? Oh my goodness. That's gonna reduce the cooldowns of her third skill by a crazy amount. I mean, technically it's not a crazy amount, it's just reducing by 1 because... never mind. There we go, 18 times multiplier, wow. I'm actually super impressed. Okay, so 12.8 million, but I feel like this is probably one of like the weaker runs. So I think there is definitely a lot of room for improvement, and this could potentially be a very strong run as well, a very strong team to give us a better scoring. So let's actually blitz this team and let's see how powerful this potentially can get. Okay, so an average of 14.8 million. I think this is pretty good. I think it definitely has room for much better scores as well. Now that's it for the Dislyte Lens, and another place that she is going to be extremely good in is obviously any of these content. You have the Cube Miracle, she's going to be very powerful in. There is an Infinite Miracle as well, like your Temporal Tower or Infinity Tower, she's going to be excellent in. And there's also Calamity Island, which we will showcase for today's video just because I have yet to complete my Calamity Island, so why not, right? So my current Calamity Island team for the Howling Pillar is going to look something like this. There's going to be a lot more discussion on some of the other experts here, but for the most part, let's take a look at Sienna and how strong she is. And the reason why I made her slightly faster than Longmian is so that I know if I double stun certain enemies, right? I 2-turn stun enemies, and I need to pause this real quick. Okay, so we only triple stun some of these enemies for a total of 2 turns. So because of that, I can then use my Longmian to try to ensure the other 2 Espers get stunned as well. Okay, so this Esper is apparently impossible to get stunned. That is fine. So she's going to be very strong in the Calamity Island. Like, she's essentially a hack. And of course, the Tangshan as well is an amazing hack in this content. So primarily for content where you do not need to worry too much about turn order so specifically, right? So you can randomly push one of your other Espers, like your Tangshan for example, and it's going to benefit you a lot. Then yeah, she's going to strive very hard in these particular content. So let's see her third skill again. Boom. Okay. This was a shit showcase. Okay, let's actually try this one more time on the next floor. So we did get some AP downs. We only got 2 stuns, unfortunately. So it doesn't seem like our average is working really nicely for us, right? But for some reason, our Longman has a better proc chance. Okay, one more chance. Last chance, last chance. Okay, nice. Very nice. So we had 4 stuns and we had a lot of AP reductions as well. None of the Espers were spared of their AP reduction. So everyone got pushed to 0 AP. That is amazing. And yes, I do realize that my head is blocking, but all the enemies are actually behind my head right now. So she's definitely very good in this content, Calamity Island, that is for sure. She is amazing over here. But of course, now we're talking about R6, which is not a very free-to-play option, of course, but just want to give you guys an idea of where she shines in terms of like PvE content at least. Alright, so that's it for PvE, I think. I think this kind of summarizes where she's good at. But we need to talk about PvP as well, because she is right now extremely good in PvP. And there are 2 main ways where I see players use her in PvP. So the first is going to be in your typical control comp. So if you're going to be running Espers like Palmy, Sienna, Lucas, Sander, and maybe a Clara or an Unas, depending on what you have, that is going to be an excellent team. But for me right now, I am actually using her in my tanky comp like so. Now this even works against other tanky comps with a lot of cleansing. So for example, this team over here has a Jinyu Yao and a Sally at R6. But for the most part, let me just quick battle this. It is still possible for her to work really well. So let's actually take a look at the replay and what actually happened and why she is still essentially very strong for cleansing tanky meta right now. Alright, so there you go. So now that we have landed the really hard stun on the Sally, she's not going to be able to use her 3rd skill. And we just need to get rid of the Jinyu Yao as fast as we can, and that's about it. And because we have Tricky as the backup here, that Jinyu Yao is going to take a lot of damage. And we can effectively get rid of her real quickly. And then the Sally is going to be easy for us to manage right now. Or not, I lied. Okay, so I guess, having the Tricky here definitely does help. Nice triple stun, and that's it, right? They are stunned for 2 turns, there is no way they can get out of this. And yeah, we do combo really well with the Tricky here because we can triple the stun duration, right? So Sienna and Tricky, definitely very powerful. Alright, so that's it for the tanky comp with Sienna. Let's take a look at the speed control comp instead. So this is what a typical speed control comp is going to look like. Obviously not everyone has a Nusi here, but if you don't have a Nusi, you can always use a Tricky. But I kind of like to use this setup a lot because this effectively nullifies Jinyu Yao, right? Because of the Nusi here. So let's just do a quick battle and let's see how this works and what happened. Okay, so we won. Very nice. So we start off with the cooldown reset on Jinyu Yao. So she's not able to return any of the debuffs that is on the enemy's side. So we're actually going to just keep AP controlling, stunning everything, and just eventually nuke everything through. There you go. More stuns again. So the Ocean set on Sienna is definitely very important, I think. Especially in PvP, and you want to run like a speed cleave comp like that. So they all come back, but our Palmy is probably gonna do it, right? Oh no, our Pritzker, OP. Yep, so that's it. This is the speed control team. Very nice. Very strong as well. I think this team is actually very powerful. Okay, so that about sums it up for R6 Sienna. She is amazing. Very, very strong at R6. And I mean, throughout her entire process of R2, R4, R6, she is good throughout the entire path. But her R6 is probably what makes her extremely broken, and she is going to be the first Esper for today's showcase, or at least in terms of like the R6 showcase. And I think she really deserves a spot here as well. But if you have any other questions pertaining to using Sienna in any content at all, let me know down in the comments below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's content. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, it really helps the channel, and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Now with that said, this has been Free to Play, and as always, I will see you in the next video.